China is on track to overtake the United States as the largest air travel market by the early 2030s. That shift will require an enormous number of new aircraft, especially wide bodies, possibly numbering in the thousands. But behind this growth lies a major concern for Boeing. The company is suddenly at risk of losing its foothold in China's long-haul market, particularly the space dominated by the 787 Dreamliner. The question is, why? What aircraft could possibly threaten one of Boeing's most successful models? The answer begins in a place most people would never expect. The story of the C929 started with a sense of fear. When Russia annexed Crimea and parts of eastern Ukraine, sweeping sanctions followed almost immediately. Russia found itself isolated, cut off from global supply chains, and blocked from purchasing modern wide-body aircraft like the Boeing 777 and Airbus A330. As a country heavily dependent on trade and international air travel, it was a devastating blow. Long-haul routes began shutting down, and Russia's civil aviation industry edged toward collapse. A dangerous gap formed between East and West, a kind of aviation dead zone that threatened to sever Russia's global connections. But within that crisis, an unusual opportunity emerged. In China, a plan quietly took shape inside a restricted research facility. It was the beginning of the joint CR929 project, which today has evolved into the C929. This was not designed to be just another aircraft. It was a $2 billion lifeline project created by two countries under pressure from the West. China would provide the funding and manufacturing strength. Russia would contribute its deep aerospace engineering knowledge. Together, they aimed to build a 280-seat wide-body jet that could challenge the Boeing 787 and Airbus A350. On paper, it looked like an ideal partnership. In practice, cracks began to show. By 2021, when the conflict in Ukraine intensified, the collaboration started to fall apart. Russia withdrew from the program a year later, leaving the future of the C929 uncertain. Reports suggested that Russian engineers had been redirected to military projects, while others claimed China insisted on full ownership of engine technologies, which Moscow refused to give up. Whatever the exact reason, the partnership dissolved. COMAC was left standing alone, holding a half-finished project, and a mountain of doubt from the global aviation community. Many wondered whether China could complete such an ambitious aircraft on its own. Then something unexpected happened. On February 24th, COMAC announced that the C929 had already entered flight testing and that its design was fully developed using China's own intellectual property. Even before the aircraft completed testing, Air China stepped forward as the launch customer. The airline said it had strong reasons for placing an early order, reasons that suggest a deeper truth about China's ambitions in the skies. Once the technical details of the C929 were released, perceptions shifted quickly. This was not a stretched version of the C919. It was a true long-haul wide-body built for some of the world's toughest routes, such as Shanghai to London or Beijing to New York. With room for 280 passengers and a range of about 12,000 kilometers, it stood ready to compete directly with the 787 and A350. What impressed analysts most was the aircraft's construction. More than half of its structure uses carbon fiber composites, a major leap from the C919 and on par with modern Western wide bodies. Another portion uses titanium alloys, creating a frame that is both lighter and stronger. The result is better fuel efficiency, lower emissions, and a cleaner performance profile. The C929 also features a wingspan of nearly 65 meters, wider than the 787. That scale demands a highly refined aerodynamic design to balance lift, stability, and fuel burn. On the inside, the aircraft's cabin measures 5.5 meters across. wider than both the Dreamliner and the A350. That means roomier seats, wider aisles, and a more open feeling that makes long-haul travel easier on passengers. And COMAC added new technologies as well. The jet includes a fully digital cockpit, adaptive lighting, flexible cabin layouts, and a real-time health monitoring system capable of detecting problems during flight. Some Western aircraft still lack that level of monitoring. Taken together, the C929 represents far more than a new airplane. It signals China's arrival as a serious contender in wide-body aviation. Air China highlighted this point when it became the first customer. As the national flag carrier, adopting a Chinese-built wide-body is both a responsibility and a statement. It aligns with China's broader goal of strengthening its domestic aviation industry. For China, the C929 is more than a commercial project. It is a symbol of rising capability and confidence. Still, one question continues to follow the program. Can the C929 truly be called a Chinese aircraft? The reality is complicated. COMAC has pushed for greater independence, but the aircraft still relies heavily on Western suppliers. Companies such as Safran and Crane Aerospace are providing critical systems, and among the 9 major avionics suppliers, most are foreign. In the short term, this helps with reliability and certification, but it also exposes China to geopolitical risks. The challenges COMAC faced with the C919 proved that reliance on Western parts can leave the program vulnerable to sanctions or supply disruptions. Without full ownership of the most important technologies, the C929 could still be seen as a hybrid rather than a fully independent Chinese design. That perception could have lingered for years, but then China made a decisive move that changed the narrative almost overnight. The breakthrough came in the form of a new engine, the CJ2000. This is China's first homegrown high-bypass turbofan built for modern wide-body aircraft. For COMAC, it represents both an engineering achievement and a strategic turning point. The CJ2000 was originally developed for the C919 but faced delays. Now it is being prepared for the C929, with flight tests planned for 2029. If successful, China will have complete control of the most important part of the aircraft, something Japan and Russia have struggled to achieve for decades. The engine produces up to 35 tons of thrust, placing it in the same league as the Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 and GE's GNX. Engineers have incorporated next-generation materials and advanced cooling systems, allowing the engine to run hotter with less fuel. This gives it a projected fuel efficiency advantage of up to 7% over its Western competitors. The fan diameter reaches 3 meters, and the overall height is larger than the GNX used on the Dreamliner. It uses composite fan blades and noise reduction designs that help create a quieter and smoother ride. At cruising altitude, the engine is expected to burn less fuel than many existing models, helping airlines cut costs on long-haul routes. With cruising speeds close to 980 kilometers per hour, it blends power with smoothness and makes a strong statement about China's capabilities in propulsion technology. This engine changes everything for the C929. It moves the aircraft from being partly dependent on foreign suppliers to becoming a fully self-reliant competitor. Even Western analysts now acknowledge that the C929 has the potential to challenge Boeing and Airbus, not just in China, but internationally. If COMAC delivers on its promises for performance, safety, and certification, the C929 could become one of the most disruptive aircraft in decades. Its long range, strong efficiency, and domestically built engine make it especially attractive in a world where airlines are increasingly cautious about political and supply chain risks. A competitive, homegrown alternative from China could reshape the wide-body market, and weaken Boeing's long-standing dominance in China, particularly in the 787 segment. For China, the C929 represents more than engineering progress. It reflects the determination of a country that refuses to stay dependent or fall behind. And if the aircraft succeeds, it may mark the moment when the era of complete Western control in wide-body aviation finally begins to shift.